as somebody who really wants to make a short film, and maybe a feature film one day, I'm a bit like, do I want to do it in Japan, where it's 100 times harder?
Wow.
Hello and welcome to the Abroad Japan podcast, probably the best way of learning about life in Japan without actually being in Japan. I'm your host, Chris Broad, and we're joined as always by England's top Japan enthusiast, Mr. Pete Donaldson himself. Pete, how the devil are you doing? What's going on?
Hello, Christopher. Slightly related to a story we're going to be talking about pretty soon on this episode. I've been reading a book about Japan.
Is it the Abroad Japan book?
No,
no. What?
I wouldn't have that. I won't have that muck in my house. Jake Adelstein's book about is it Adelstein or Adelstein?
Adelstein.
Book.
Yeah.
Adelstein. He's got a book that I think is relatively new about the Yakuza. Which basically goes through the history of the Yakuza. I think the start of the book has him employing a Japanese criminal or an ex-Japanese criminal for protection, I think, because he'd obviously written the book Tokyo Vice about a Yakuza member who I think had some kind of liver issue, I think, and went to America to sort that out.
Yeah, I think the American government helped him out because they wanted to get some info out of him. So they gave him some support in getting the liver treatment.
And so this story was quite upsetting to some clan members of the Yakuza. So Adelstein basically employed this Yakuza guy, and at the same time absolutely rinsed him for information about his life and how it all kind of got put together. And it is fascinating. It's not a he's very much not up for glamorizing the life of petty crime and not so petty crime. And it's a big record. Next to the Abroad Japan book, it's the recommendation. It's the Pete Donaldson book of the week.
Pete Donaldson's
and it's
book
very
of the
interesting.
week.
I do like the way that man writes.
Yeah, he's a good writer. I mean, there was a lot of debate over his original book, how much of it is rooted in truth and fact and fiction and whatnot. And I have no idea personally, but it's a good read. I read it years ago and I enjoyed reading it. And the series Tokyo Vice is... I saw season 1 and it's pretty good, actually. And I've heard good things about season 2, so I need to check that out.
Has it come out for season 2 as well?
It's got a season 2. It's come out. I find not that many people seem to watch Tokyo Vice, though. Whenever I talk to people, compared to, say, Shogun, where it was like everyone watched Shogun except Pete Donaldson. Yeah. Whereas Tokyo Vice...
I didn't even watch Tokyo Vice, yeah.
I found it quite hard to find people I could talk to about the series, and it was quite bizarre. I thought it would be a natural hit. But maybe it is, maybe the viewing figures are good. Clearly it's got season 2. That would indicate it's done well. And I actually think I bumped into the guy playing Jake Adelstein in the series Tokyo Vice, Ansel Elgort, who's in various films like Baby Driver and whatnot. I think I walked past him, and I was walking through somewhere in Tokyo, and he was walking the other way towards me, and I clocked him. I was like, I recognise this person, and I nodded at him. And then afterwards, I was like, wait a minute, that's Ansel Elgort. What's he doing here? Oh, he's probably filming another series of Takeover. Yeah. Welcome back to crappy, boring, underwhelming encounters with celebrities. Me clutching at straws, Pete Donaldson, Ali Plum, fucking getting to shake Jennifer Lawrence's hand. Well, not everyone.
It's nice. It's nice that it was fascinating. It was nice that it sounds like you're doing some filming in Tokyo, because it sounds like according to Ali and you, it's absolutely impossible to get anything filmed in Tokyo, and I think that's why if I'm watching a Western production set in Tokyo, Bullet Train's a good example, obviously. I know for a fact that it's never been in that in that country, and I find that it's a real turn off for me. I don't know why. I don't know, because I use these films as a little bit of escapism, because I always want to be in Japan, and I think knowing full well that they filmed it in whatever tax write-off place, Canada.
For Shogun, it works for Shogun because they had to basically rebuild a sort of Japanese old style village, which don't exist in Japan at all.
No.
And if they do, it's a nightmare to film there. Although when I lived in Yamagata, I lived next to a town called Soroka, and that's when they had this old style, Japanese historic town. Yeah, they used to film a lot of videos like 13 Assassins, which I need to rewatch actually. But Tokyo Vice, they filmed I think most of it in Tokyo, except maybe some interior scenes, and that is commendable. When you read the stories of how they got it and how they had to like ask 300 shops for permission to get this one shot on this street in Akasaka, downtown Tokyo, it's very impressive how they did that. But yeah, I mean, as somebody who really wants to make a short film, and maybe a feature film one day, I'm a bit like, do I want to do it in Japan, where it's fucking 100 times harder? Like, you can film in the UK so much easier, get permission to shoot, whereas in Japan it's a really nightmarish thing, because most businesses are not overly excited at the presence of TV or film crew, like a movie crew, in the way that we kind of are in the West, and they're a lot more mindful of, but will the shooting of the film get in the way of my regular customers being able to come into the store and whatnot? So I kind of get it, but at the same time, I think it broke Ridley Scott when he was making Black Rain in Osaka, when he was filming Black Rain and whatnot. He was like, I'm never going to film a movie in Japan again. That's my accent. That's my impression.
That's your accent, right?
Where is it? The same
I mean, Ridley Scott's from my neck of the woods, isn't he? So yeah, I'm never gonna film in Japan again.
I felt bad for him. Poor old Ridley Scott. He just wanted to.
Poor old Ridley.
He
just wants to make his weird films.
Let him. Maybe it's time to retire. Stop making Gladiator 2. Let's see. We got a story from James from Australia this week. He says, hello, Chris and Pete. On our last trip to Japan, I had a very awkward encounter. We were the only foreigners staying there. It was our first time staying in a ryokan. Oh, God. Not another ryokan story. I'm still, kind of traumatised by last week's story of the guys that went to a ryokan, a traditional inn, and it was just some drunk American's house in West Tokyo. After a very delicious
mattress on the floor.
After a very delicious 5-course meal and a quick rest, I donned my yukata and headed from the hotel room to the hot spring for a toasty dip in the water. It was late, so I skipped wearing undergarments, figuring I'd be taking everything off in a minute. I proceeded to have a lovely soak, and feeling refreshed, I put my yukata back on and left the baths. Outside, I was approached by an old Japanese woman who said something to me while pointing at my yukata. My Japanese isn't very good, so assuming I had the collar inside out, I apologised and went back to the changing rooms to fix it. Upon exiting again, the nice lady was still waiting, and exactly the same thing happened. In broken English, she managed to communicate that I had the full yukata on inside out and proceeded with an attempt to help me straighten myself out. I laughed awkwardly and jumped back with a daijobu, showing, knowing the shock of what would await her. Confused, she said, "Pantsu arimasu ka?" Do you have your pants? I laughed awkwardly and replied, "Sumimasen, pants arimasen." She roared with laughter and shooed me back to the changing area and left me to sort out my yukata in peace. A hilarious story to think back on now, but my God, it could have gone horribly wrong at the time. Thanks for all the videos and best of luck with everything. James from Australia. Pants arimasen James, as we like to call him. My God, always wear your underwear under the yukata, for the love of God.
Yeah, I'm not a tall man, and still, yet the yukata leaves nothing to the imagination. Very high cut. And if if you're a bloke, things do dangle. And so, well, just wear your pants on it.
One gust of wind, and it's game over.
Yeah,
yukata, yeah, you got to be careful.
It's a sex crime. Yeah, good.
Dear, oh dear. Well, we got a story this week about crime. Speaking of crime, this is a very crime-ridden podcast this week.
Yeah,
all the crime.
Yeah.
What's going on, Pete? About crime. Fill us in.
There's more crime, Chris. You'd think that, please, sir, can I have some more crime? We've got some more crime, Chris. There's a new band of bandits in Japan that we've got to worry about. Yakuza may be out. The Yakuza may be out. But the Tokuryū. The Tokuryū. Which are formed by the kanji, the characters Anonymous, Tokome, and Fluid, Ryudo. The firm Tokuryū refers to ad hoc groups formed to commit crimes, where members often don't know each other or those planning and directing their activities. So it sounds very much like... in the same way that we've decentralised money with the Bitcoin revolution.
It's the Bitcoin of
crime. We're decentralising crime. There's no rhyme or reason. Very much these groups sort of pop up and they just seem to do whatever they want. They are distinct from the Yakuza, the Tokuryū, because they're less hierarchical, usually with loose organisational structures above those carrying out crimes ranging from frauds, robberies to assaults and murders. And basically they are recruited online for what is known as yamibaito, which is shady casual work. A lot of these people were kind of like...
You say yamibaito. I love that.
Yeah.
Yamibaito.
Yamibaito. Yamibaito. Sounds like one of those little garages you get at the side of a really like a B road selling burgers.
I mean, baito
come into
means
Yummy
like...
Baito. Get yourself a big greasy spoon cafe breakfast. Lovely.
Oh my god. Oh man.
But basically these kind of like freelance criminals are being recruited online for a bit of yamibaito or shady casual work, and many of them tell police that threats were made against them and their families to ensure they continue to obey orders. So it's kind of like a kind of like dark web crime for pay, crime for...
yummy dark
we're
web.
going to do something we're going to threaten, like kind of blackmail kind of situation. More than 10,000 people arrested between 2021 and February 2023 are classified as Tokuryū. And police last month in Fukuoka established a 100-member division to combat the growing threat. The prefecture is a former Yakuza stronghold. So, I mean, it sounds very much like like I said, it's a kind of decentralised, modern version of the Yakuza. Somebody's got a bit of money, somebody's got a bit of blackmail compromat, somebody's going to threaten your family. They're getting online and they're basically saying, you better do this crime or I'm going to blooming get you.
I mean, it's like the Yakuza have sort of disappeared a bit, right? The membership...
They're very old now,
dropped right
I
off
suppose.
the cliff. Yeah, it's crazy. It used to be 200,000 in sort of the 60s, and now there's 20,000. Just because it's so difficult to be a Yakuza. Crack out the fiddle, crack out the violin. It's so hard to be a Yakuza because they basically wouldn't allow them to do banking and all the sort of documents and all the government stuff.
Imagine how difficult it is for to do banking anyway. Imagine being a Yakuza.
It's already a nightmare in Japan
God.
doing banking. You just reminded me I've got to do some banking stuff. I've got to take my stamp in and stamp a fucking document.
Well, you got if you're Yakuza, you could replace your missing digit with your Hanko stamp, so you never forget it.
Like some sort of transformed. Oh, God. But, I remember there was a crime in Ginza this year where some guys kind of... this sort of criminal syndicate smashed up a jewelry store, ran off with all the jewelry, and then they all got caught anyway. Right. But it's a bit worrying. There's a weird sort of. We sometimes speak to folks here. There's a weird nostalgia towards the Yakuza, like they were men of honor because they have some roles they play by, but then they don't. You know, there's a weird sort of nostalgia towards them that at least the criminal Yakuza organisations moderate themselves a bit and give themselves checks and balances.
That was the interesting thing about the book about the Yakuza that Jake Adelstein wrote. There was one, the central figure is this kind of, I think he's Korean. I guess most of the Yakuza were Korean, weren't they, at the start? But this guy, he got into the Yakuza because he had an addiction to Soapland.
Oh my
he had an addiction to just getting his rocks off in dens of ill repute, and he was he got a debt of like 50 grand just getting whacked off by women. It was so silly, and so that's how he fell into the Yakuza life, by just being so horny.
Crikey.
Oh dear,
I love that.
God.
Dens of ill repute. It's such a nice way of saying it. It's like brothel. Wonderful stuff. But like it's crime is still a thing in Japan. Crime does exist, and now it's fragmented instead of one big organisation. But I don't have much else to add on that. I still haven't come into contact with such folks, which is good, and I don't really want to. Though Joey did a good video where he interviewed like an ex-Yakuza member that was quite interesting. And got to spend some time with him. Joey always finds these wacky individuals. Like he did one the other day where he interviewed a man who had 3 wives, and it wasn't pleasant. Don't know how he does it.
One could only tell a truth. One could only tell lies.
Better Jerry than me. We'll be back in just a moment, guys. With your stories, comments, and questions over in the fax machine.
Wow.
Now we're back with the fax machine. What have we got this week from our listeners, Mr. Dawson? Fill us in.
We got a message from Sunny in Hawaii. Wasn't Sunny in the TV show Miami Vice?
Yes.
Which I know is not Hawaii, but there's just something about driving a convertible in Hawaii with a Hawaiian shirt on, solving crimes and being
Sonny
called
Crockett.
Sonny. Anyway, I'm enjoying it.
Have you seen Miami Vice, by the way? Because I've been thinking I really want to watch it recently, because I've never seen it. I know it's like influenced so much of 80s culture
I did.
that I love.
I watched the film, and is it Michael Mann? It's Michael Mann, isn't it?
The film is a bit...
The film.
Yeah, it's Michael
Well,
Mann. Yeah.
Well, I really like the film because I really like the trailer with that kind of I think it was that Linkin Park Jay-Z song on it, and I just very much like the vibe. But you watched it, and I don't know why the director just it's part of his kind of calling card that he makes dialogue impossible to hear. So I just watched it. I was going, I cannot hear what anyone's saying.
Christopher Nolan.
And it's not my age. That's just what he does. But yeah, I never watched my. There was this guy or set of guys who did. Like they used to do like live action Garfield cartoons,
Right.
and they basically parodied a scene and did a shoot for shoot remake of Garfield as Garfield and Odie in a car doing that, that Miami Vice kind of famous kind of little intro video and stuff. And so I've never actually seen an episode of Miami Vice, but I have seen the Garfield parody that man made back in the day. So yeah. And yeah, anyway, we got a message from Police Detective Sonny in Hawaii. If anybody remembers the 1990s video game Police Quest, Sonny Bonds was the very much the police detective that you play in the game Police Quest. But Sonny in Hawaii, that's what I'm imagining him. Hello, B-Road Chris and Gibbon Pal Pete. I'm a police detective and I listen to your podcast while I sit at my desk for long hours reading, editing and creating hundreds of pages of reports. I'm curious for you both, what's your work desk setup like? For example, do you have double monitors, mood lighting? I see Pete uses a secret lab chair. Keep the great work, fellas, and cheers. Kanpai and aloha, Sunny in Hawaii. Love to hear from you. Can I stay in your house? Because Hawaii looks lovely.
I mean, your setup is it's cool. Where you are, is that where you do your editing and your like worky things?
So when we bought this house, the wife, the lady of the house, she had this as her kind of, I think, hypnotherapy business. This room, this cabin at the back of the house, and I set to work as soon as we moved in when I had a bit of free time, and I made like a sort of soundproof kind of little studio. I got like a load of timber and set up a couple of walls, partition walls, and a doorway and stuff. And it's a bit janky, but it's served me quite well for the past couple of years. And yeah, 4 monitor setup. I do work my Radeon card quite hard, and that's what I'm going for.
I mean,
I'm finding that our recording device, though, Chris, the software that we use, is very memory hungry at the moment, and it really slows down everything. I'm a bit worried that it's you'll figure it out.
I mean, my setup when I'm filming in the studio, there's a lot of things going on, but at my house where I edit, my apartment, I just have like a Mac Studio, which is like the little boxy computer, the Apple box, and with a big monitor. It's good. I would like another monitor, but it's not. I just don't have enough space to really put one there. It's annoying. When I was a student, I think I had 2 or 3 monitors, and it was very excessive. And I didn't use them for nothing apart from playing stupid video games. And now I edit videos professionally, and I have 1 monitor, and I should probably have more than one. In fact, most of my videos were edited on a laptop up until 2020. I just did it on a laptop, which is crazy. I'm very, very stupid. I should have.
But do you not think that it kind of helps because I've got so many monitors and I can obviously use them for stuff, and I just feel that if I'm on the road I feel like I can't work because I've only got one screen, and so I think if you're always editing just on one screen, it does mean that when you're forced to edit out of the studio, it means you can just get more work done because you just feel like you're not restricted, I suppose.
That would make sense. That does make sense. But yeah, it's a pretty bad setup for me. I need to get more monitors. I do. We got one here from Jade from Toronto. It says, hello, Chris and Pete. I'm planning my first trip to Japan for hopefully next year. I have a medical condition that causes chronic cases of hiccups. It's an actual thing. I actually did date someone once who had this problem. And it went from being like, isn't that funny? And being finding it funny to not being very funny very quickly because it must drive you mad having hiccups.
Yeah.
I know that Japan is a very quiet culture, what within thin walls and silent subway trains. So I wanted to ask you, will there be a way to navigate the country without being seen as an annoyance or being a skeezy drunk? Are there more private places to stay as opposed to something like a capsule hotel so I don't bother other guests? Any advice is helpful. Jade from Toronto. That's that's a real quality of life nightmare in the making. Just stay at a business hotel, right? Don't stay at a capsule hotel. For the love of God, that'll drive you mad. You'll be so paranoid about the noise because capsule hotels, you do have to kind of be quiet because the little foldy screen doors you have don't do anything for noise.
I think also just the kind of reverberant makeup of a tube would actually make it more intense than it actually was. Sure. You can probably do a couple of hours in one just to see what it's like and get kicked out.
Yeah, I mean that's a real pain though. I guess you'll have to ride trains, but they'll be really quiet. Everything's quiet except bars and restaurants in Japan. There you can blend in, but go to like bars that are playing music and stuff, and restaurants that are busy and stuff, rather than, I think those kind of very quiet, really posh kind of private dining sort of sushi experiences and stuff might be a bit intense and might kind of, but everywhere else, like a ramen place or a meat on rice kind of gaff, they're pretty loud and chaotic and noisy and stuff. And also, especially because you're right next to the kitchen, people are just smashing plates around and that. And also, while people don't talk on trains, they are quite loud still. They cough and burp and make horrible noises. There was a guy on the train who was going recently on a 2-hour train ride, and he was doing it. It seemed very deliberately, this coughing noise that he didn't need to do to sort of annoy people, and everyone got really angry. And so people can be quite loud about things like that. So
I was dozing. I was we do certainly on my schedule here in the UK. We record the show at 6 a.m. or 6:30, depending on whether my computer's playing ball. And at sort of cracking on for midnight last night, I was just going to sleep, and my partner screamed.
Oh my God!
Because there was a moth in the room.
Oh,
and I was like, I am not going to be able to go back to sleep now because I am now filled with adrenaline. And true enough, I didn't get back to sleep for a little while anyway. So, because she also, every summer she gets this kind of quite tickly cough. And so literally every 5 minutes she's coughing, and it's horrible for her, bless her. She never gets enough sleep because of it. And neither do I. Let's make that very clear. But it's that anything like that is pretty horrific.
Well, this noise this guy was making on the train,
to a certain extent,
because I'm going to sound like an absolute prick for saying he was coughing, everyone was angry. It wasn't. The way he was making the noise was abundantly clear. He was doing it deliberately and a bit annoyingly. And I find a lot of older Japanese guys can sometimes make noises to be disruptive deliberately, and this guy was one of them, and he could sense it, and everyone was like, what's he doing? It was like this snorting weird noise, and it's really annoying.
More snakes on trains, please, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago.
Throw a snake. Keep the stories, questions, comments coming in. To Abroad Japan. This is what happens when the Tully's coffee wears off. Keep the stories coming to abroadjapanpodcast@gmail.com or comment below on the YouTube. But for now, guys, we'll see you later in the week. All over again. Have yourselves a bloody good one. See you there. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.